Going on, everybody? Welcome back to an episode of Steelers Breakdown. First day of rookie minicamp was today, folks. We were down on the UPMC Ring Sports Complex there, talking with these rookies. If you want a rewind video, make sure to go check out Steelers Rewind. Let's do our Friday episode of the podcast. Let's talk a little bit about rookie minicamp, but also today, Omar Khan speaking on why the team traded George Pickens and where to go from here. Really on, really kind of going forward for the Steelers um, at the wide receiver position. So let's start off with Pickens. Let's just start off with a short kind of synopsis here. Basically, Omar Khan said they talked with Pickens and his agent, David Mulugeta, and the conversations kind of got to a point where they said, listen, it's time for the fresh start. Both sides agreed on that. George Pickens never requested a trade, but the Steelers sought it out. The Cowboys came with an aggressive offer with the third round pick, and the Steelers decided to make that trade. As for the kind of future of this position, they're comfortable with what they have. A lot of excitement around Roman Wilson, the dependable veteran Robert Woods, but possibility for another addition, of course, to that room if the things put themselves together. So there's a lot moving there. But I think the gist, guys, there's really a few things about this Pickens thing. Guys, they were tired of dealing with George Pickens's antics, to be quite honest with you. I think that's kind of where this is. I mean, the Steelers were just tired of it. He was late for games at times. And so I don't think he was necessarily a locker room detriment. Like, I think if you pulled people in that locker room, I don't necessarily think people would go, wow, this guy was a, complete haphazard. But what I do think is at some point, when you hurt your team on the field like he did a few times, when you kind of showed that lack of maturity and professionalism, I just think it reaches a point where you as a franchise are not going to pay this guy $25 million to be your wide receiver one. I think they gave him a platform to be trusted upon. They brought in Zach Kazani, he was a disciplinarian and accountability. They traded Deontay Johnson. They allowed him to assume the wide receiver one role, and throughout the season, it was just clear that they couldn't trust him to do it. And so, a fresh start elsewhere, potentially, George Pickens can find that elsewhere. But that's really where this is. As for moving forward, I mean, guys, I'm going to be real with you. Look at the free agency and trade market. It's not lush. I mean, I think the likeliest option here, it's maybe not the likeliest, but the best is the Packers' wide receiver room. That's where I would pop in at. Could you get a Dontavian Wicks? Could you get a Romeo Doubs? Both of those guys are different players. Wicks is more of a route runner. Doubs is a bigger bodied guy, but I think those guys could produce. I think those guys could get open. I don't think either of them are George Pickens level talents, but I think they're solid players. And I think that could potentially get the Steelers maybe a really solid wide receiver too, if that was the case. Now, I don't know if the Packers are going to want to trade them. Christian Watson's coming off a torn ACL. They did draft Matthew Golden, Savion Williams, so certainly an impetus potentially for a move there. But this might not happen, if it does happen until we're talking, cut down day, where we see go through the preseason and everything. So this might be a while for that scenario to pop up. Same thing with the Texans room. If you like a guy like John Mechie or Xavier Hutchinson or whoever, just feel like that is going to be one that develops later in the cycle than right now. So the Steelers are going to have to wait, I think, to add someone to this room. We'll see kind of how they view it. But the trade market is not great. If we look at the free agency market, you really have four names I think that stick out to me, being Mark Cooper, Keenan Allen, Gabe Davis, and DJ Chark. Different players. Cooper, route runner type, obviously, but coming off a pretty down year. Keenan Allen coming off one of his least productive years. He still had over near 700 yards and seven touchdowns, so certainly something there. But he's more of a slot receiver. Steelers have slot receivers in Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin. You would like to get a guy that's on the outside. And then you look at Chark, he's a big body, deep threat. Davis, same thing, big body, deep threat blocker, dealing with an injury of his own, though, coming off a meniscus surgery. So he was also released with the failed physical designation. So you'd have to see how that goes. But there's no slam dunk add here to this room. It's more likely than not, unless the Steelers, in my opinion, get one of those Packers receivers that they're going to go into the season with what is probably going to be an underwhelming room. to be quite honest with you. And we'll see what Roman Wilson can do, and we'll see what Calvin Austin can do. But um, we'll see. I think it's likelier than not, even if they do add someone, it's not going to be, my goodness, this is just filled with weapons. I just don't necessarily see that happening unless they get one of those Green Bay guys. As for rookie minicamp, I do want to go through a few takeaways that I had. First of all, man, I just think, from my observations, I like rookie minicamp because I think it's easy to kind of observe baseline physical traits, just kind of how guys get in and out of breaks as a receiver, for example. As a quarterback, are you in rhythm? Do you look comfortable? Things like that. I thought Caleb Johnson really stuck out in a good way in that regard. He just looks very fluid. He moves completely different from, Najee Harris, for example, from Jalen Warren, from Le'Veon Bell. I mean, this guy just has an effortlessness, a smoothness to him. His cuts are really easy, but they're sharp. He's really smart. You can tell he's got to pick up on pass pro cues. I thought he messed a few of those up because Eddie Faulkner was chewing him out a few times over that, but he's got pop in his hands, so there's definitely traits there to build upon that say, hey, you figure that out, you could be a good pass protector. But he's just got effortless movement skills. I think that's what stuck out to me about him. Rock Taylor, the wide receiver, the Memphis undrafted free agent who potentially is going to compete for a roster spot here with George Pickens gone. We are talking about a guy that is just big. He is 6'3", 210, somewhere around there by the looks of it. His frame just screams X receiver. I don't even think there's another spot. He doesn't look like a Z. He looks like a big dude you put up on the line and say, go make some contested catches. He's got that kind of squatty running back build to him on top of that. It's an odd kind of feel to it. But I mean, we are talking about a guy to me that 100% fits in at the X spot. So that's definitely got him an advantage. Sebastian Castro, we're talking about a guy here that I think has some really nice movement skills in terms of just flipping his hips, getting in and out of his breaks as a corner. He has mirror skills, I think. He's a bigger dude. I don't think he has great speed. I don't think he has great explosiveness. I think the athletic concerns are a little bit of a question. But could he play the slot safety hybrid role? I think that's big time. He told me today he was playing both. They have him working more safety right now just because he played so much slot at Iowa. So that one's going to be more of a plug and play easy kind of thing to work with. But I do really think that you look at Castro, and this is a guy that could make a roster push. I like him a lot. Will Howard is interesting, just because we didn't see him throw too much today. They're working more just on kind of mechanics, getting things set up. But the footwork, his footwork at Ohio State changed at the end of last year. It became more in rhythm. They kind of took out two false steps. It feels like he's 1, 2, 3, boom now. He gets things out on time, right? Like the release and the aim points are all there. He's just quicker on his feet. I think that's something to think about. The footwork has everything in rhythm on time. That's a big thing for quarterbacks, staying on rhythm and in time makes you think a lot less. And I think he's got that working for him. So I thought that was interesting. They're continually working on that and emphasizing it. So something to look at there with Will Howard. YA Black is a big dude. That was my first impression. I was like, wow, this guy's big. And he's got powerful hands. He's got sledgehammers, to be quite honest with you, attached to his hands. He has pop there, and when he pops you, man, you feel it. He absolutely knocks people back. When the sled gets hit by him, it jolts in a way that it doesn't for others. Even Derek Harmon, who has power. We're talking about a guy, man, that can really fly. Um, from the line of scrimmage and just pop you under your pads when he gets the pad level going. Has that pad level swell issue that was noticeable at times too, though, and even Carl Dunbar called it out. I think Harmon has a good get off. He's explosive enough. He's doing about as well as he can right now after the passing of his mother. But looked good out there. Nothing that I didn't know about Derek Harmon today, but looked big, looked apart. So that's good news. The other kind of interesting thing I thought was Carson Bruner, the seventh round linebacker. I really thought he moved well in his drops. And again, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for base athletic traits here. Very smart player. Already putting in kind of calls for him to call out. He's a really fluid athlete, I feel like. He's not an elite athlete, but I think he's fluid. I don't think there's a lot of tightness there. So I like that when you're talking about fluid athletes at the second level, that's what you want. And so I think there's baseline traits here in the Steelers' draft class, really across the board. Those are a few things I kind of picked up on. I'll have an episode out tomorrow as well, Steelers rerun, and then a podcast episode with it. I'm just talking about kind of my takeaways from the rookie minicamp weekend, and kind of what we can take away. Of course, we can't take away much, guys. They weren't even in helmets, they weren't in shells, they were literally just in shorts, and going through motions and different things like that. But I can tell you, coachability things, and just base athletic traits. I think when you see it in person, it kind of pops a little different for you. But obviously, we'll see how all that translates into, even OTAs and training camp and 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 and then preseason, et cetera, et cetera. We'll see how that all translates. But for sure, some interesting things that I kind of came away with, that you see in person and you appreciate. I thought that was important to kind of get out there. All right, folks, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell for more. Thanks for watching.